Who am I?
Richard Kazimer, media veteran.
Why I got in radio is because I'm good with a knife.
Contributor in Perth, Australia.
Our friend Richard Kazimer in the United States.
How are you guys enjoying the 19th century? Is that working out for you? How can you say, I'm not making fun of you as a race, I'm making fun of you as black performers?
I think as a country, Americans are as patriotic as the most rabid UK football hooligan.
Who am I?
Richard S. Kazimer.
Balls Radio with Phil Dobbie. What's really going on?
The Heartbleed bug. This is the open loophole in security certificates that sit on websites. Apparently, it's been big news, of course, that there's a loophole in it, and apparently the US spy agency knew about it 2 years ago. They would have said something, but obviously it was just that little bit too useful for them. We're going to talk to Richard Kazimer from the United States about that and a whole load of other things, how much the president earns and a whole load of other stuff as well with Richard Kazimer. In the United States, it seems, they've either just had an election or they're busy campaigning for the next one and the very long process that entails. And as you might expect, the party that creates wealth for the richest does well with party donations from the rich. Whilst the Democrats, who are obviously pushing for a more egalitarian society, well, they're not going to have the same benevolent donors, are they? After all, if you've got an egalitarian society, that means the rich don't get quite so rich. And what controls there were on who can donate to the major parties, well, they've basically been swept aside by the US Supreme Court. So it's all very confusing. Richard Kazimer is on the line from the United States. So, Richard, just how does all this work?
Yeah, do you have a couple of hours? It's long been established, Phil, that America...
We have, sadly, okay. But let's try and condense it.
I'll fill it in. Well, as I say, it's been a long established fact that America has the best politicians money can buy. And what's being touted as one of the most important, and a lot of people are saying one of the most damaging blows to democracy here in the country, is that the conservative stacked U.S. Supreme Court a couple of weeks ago lifted the cap on how much an individual donor can contribute to a political candidate or candidates. Now, in the past, an individual limit, I could only donate $123,000 in overall spending on any given election year. Now, that breaks down to about $49,000 to all candidates and roughly $75,000 to whatever party or parties I want to give to, including the PACs or political action committees. Well, the Supreme Court a few weeks ago ruled that the $5,200 contribution base limit on a single candidate did not create what they're calling a cognizable risk of corruption. What that means is that regardless of how much money you give to a particular candidate, that limit of $5,200 did not necessarily mean that candidate would then be owing to that donor any political favors. So therefore, the Supreme Court says, well, if $5,200 isn't going to do it, then a couple of $1 million isn't going to corrupt anybody.
With no favors whatsoever, I'm just doing it out of the generosity of my heart. I don't believe I'm going to get anything back from this. That's what they're saying. Yeah, right.
And it's totally ludicrous because there are candidates out there that are specifically getting and admittedly getting money from big money bag conservative donors. Like I'll give an example: the Koch brothers, who are heavily into the energy industry, and also Sheldon Adelson, who is in gambling. He gives millions of dollars to candidates. And what he wants to do is to eliminate online gambling because his money comes from casinos in Macau and in the United States. So what he wants to do, and he's donating money to candidates, and lo and behold, those candidates are for banning online gaming here in the United States. So there you go. Yeah.
How much for it are they? Well, I guess it depends on how much, a bit more money, and I'll even be more against online gambling. So does there have to be transparency behind all of this? Do you have to see? Does it have to be published where they're receiving their money from?
Well, here's the deal, because this also is part and parcel with the Citizens United Supreme Court ruling of a few years back that gave the same individual anonymity to corporations as individual donors. They basically said that corporations are people and therefore also have the privacy that people have. So a company can be, even if, let's say a company has 10,000 employees, that company can represent 10,000 individual donors and have that same anonymity. And also what it does, Phil, is that it changes the playing field, as you said in the beginning, in favor of the conservative right. Now, the majority of conservatives, the majority of millionaire and billionaires here in this country, the 1% as they're known, they control nearly 90% of America's wealth. The beneficiaries of all of this are going to be the media companies who are going to get deluged with millions of dollars in increased campaign ads, regardless of the fact that those campaign ads are probably blatant lies and with a right-wing agenda. People have a tendency to vote based on, their conscience and as well as the barrage of advertising. Advertising is effective. Otherwise, you and I wouldn't be in the business. And so we'll see what's going to happen. The end result is that if all these right-wing and GOP and Tea Party candidates get elected because of the increase in advertising, very quickly those candidates and now elected officials are going to be taking away the rights of those constituents who voted them in. Of course, it could, which is exactly their goal.
It could all go. I mean, and you and I know the power of the media. And if you've got a lot of money and the same message is repeated over and over again, that is obviously why Australia, unlike the rest of the world, is blind to the idea that global warming might actually be happening, because we've had a media that's been telling them, no, it's all a load of bull. So there is power behind the media, but it can also explode, can't it? So if people feel like the media has been bought and that the Republicans are sucking in a lot of money from corporate America, it could backfire on them.
Well, there's a saturation effect because people will turn the ads off. And regardless of who has the ads, people get sick of it, especially as you approach the voting day, the polling day. So people have a tendency to turn it off, and then they start voting either through their conscience or that one candidate looks better than the other. So it's cyclical. Once somebody is, that's the great thing about every 2 and 4 and 6 years here, people get voted out. So you do it until they take away the right to vote. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, maybe that'll happen next. Because someone
they're working on it
for that. Absolutely. But as Goebbels said, any lie frequently repeated becomes the truth. And I guess if you've got a lot of money to keep on repeating lies, that's what happens. Now, the Heartbleed bug. Some have said that we should be treating this with the same trepidation as the Y2K bug, which I thought was an unusual thing to say because, look what that did. Nothing at all.
Yeah.
Whereas this one seems like it could be much worse. And there's reports that the National Security Agency in the United States knew about this thing 2 years ago, but kept it secret, obviously, because they were taking advantage of the loophole.
Well, this is it. Our favorite covert and unaccountable spy ring, the NSA, the National Security Agency, as you said, supposedly knew about this bug 2 years ago, didn't say anything to anybody, and used it to gather data. Now, what the Heartbleed bug is, it's a piece of software that infects. Actually, it's a protocol faux pas that was in the software that a lot of companies use. About 2/3 of the internet companies use to get data for your emails and passwords and things like that.
Yeah, the secure certificates.
Yes, it's a security protocol. It wasn't a malware. It wasn't a virus. Somebody didn't maliciously put it in there. It was a glitch in the system. How the NSA found out about it is anybody's guess. But they said, hey, look at this. Let's use it and gather all this data. Somebody else found out about it, and the word went out. It's since been fixed. You were advised to change your password if you had Google, Yahoo, and a bunch of other things. But the question remains as to why would the NSA be interested in exploiting an internet security flaw? And the simple answer is because it can, and that's what it does. You can't possibly think that this uber secret spy agency would have to ask permission to conduct covert operations, even though they are required to by law. They're not going to.
Yeah.
So, here we are again with the NSA.
Well, the good thing about this loophole for them is that, it's there to hide passwords and login details. So if they've got access to that and there's a loophole, so they can see in plain text what people are typing in, then they can go and see, log into anything that that person has access to. So I wonder whether some of that's going on. So I smell a bit of a rat here. I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but you can't help feeling if they knew about this 2 years ago and they didn't say anything, did they have any influence in how this software was written in the first place? And it's been around for years. Yeah. The
upside is that President Obama, in addition to this NSA expose, has recommended some NSA reforms, one of which is that he's asking that the NSA would help fix software flaws instead of exploiting them, which is like asking MI6 to open a kiosk at Tech Buy.
These are the last people to talk to How about this? Good Lord. Now, speaking about Obama, the president's tax return. This amazes me. In the US, you get to see the president's tax return. So we know that he and Michelle had an income last year of $500,000. Not bad. But I guess it would be interesting to see, actually. I mean, that's quite a chunk of money, but I mean, he's doing a good job. So have we always been able to see this? Can we look at this and compare it, for example, to previous Republican presidents?
Absolutely.
Can we see how much?
Sure. It's because he's an employee of the public. So therefore you can't see mine, but because he works for the people, as do all presidents, there is that transparency. It's not a lot of money. This is also one of those annual meaningless rituals that we go through here in the United States just before the April 15th tax filing deadline. It really means nothing. This year, it did show that President Obama and the First Lady Michelle had an adjusted gross income of $481,000 and change for 2013, which represents a 21% drop from 2012, which with both of them made $608,000. That decrease is attributed to slack off in their book sales. Obama did not have a book published in 2013. I think Michelle may have had something food related, but they also had fewer charitable contributions, which they would take a tax deduction. So Obama's paid $98,000 in taxes in 2013. That's a big chunk of money. Mind you, now at $481,000, that just means he pocketed $81,000 because the president's salary is $400,000 a year.
Yeah, no,
and he gets a $50,000 non-taxable expense account, which includes a nice ride, free housing, food. So that's not a lot of money.
No, it's not a lot of money. And their book sales are around $100,000, I think. So that's not a lot of money. So anybody who thinks they're going to get rich from writing novels, let me tell you, I can vouch for the fact that you don't, because I've written one, and it's scarcely worth me repatriating the money from the US where it's published. But you know, here you've got two of the biggest names in the world, and they can't make a lot of money out of it either. So it just goes to show, you know, you're never going to get rich from writing.
The big money when he retires will be speaking fees and consultation. That's like Bill Clinton, for example, and certainly not painting like George W. Bush.
Any sold this week? Hear of anything sold? No? Oh, well. Now, an interesting HR tactic from Amazon. I like this. I think this is a good idea.
Well, this is one of the oddest ways of cleaning the roster of unproductive employees. Amazon is instituting a pay-to-quit incentive. Last week, Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos told shareholders that he's offering new employees of Amazon $2,000 to quit, and that every year he ups it by $1,000 with a $5,000 cap. Now, the rationale is that he wants the Amazon employees to seriously reevaluate their commitment to Amazon each year. And as an incentive, he's going to give them some walking away money should they decide that working at Amazon isn't for them. It's pretty strange. It's not unheard of, but Amazon has actually done this before. He's just now giving it to the 40,000 warehouse workers as well as the 117,000 people that work for Amazon anyway. Amazon workers in general, especially the warehouse workers, make an average $12 an hour, which is higher than the national minimum wage. It still only comes out to about $25,000 a year, and that's not a lot of money. To date, less than 10% of Amazon employees have taken the offer, and that either means Amazon is a great company or $5,000 is still chump change. Phil.
Yeah, not enough. That's right. Well, mind you, if you're on $25,000 a year, $5,000 would be a substantial improvement in your salary, even though it's still not a lot of money. No. But this is a better idea, though, than one of the crazy things that large companies do to try and clean out the workforce is, of course, set KPIs, performance indicators, for everyone on their staff, and often they're the wrong performance indicators. And you could get me started on this a lot, where it changes behavior in the wrong way fairly often. But if you fall at the bottom of the scale of your KPIs that have been set for you, then you lose your job. So basically, everyone's fearful of losing their job, and some companies are saying, yeah, we're going to lose 5% of our workforce every year because we're basically getting rid of the deadwood. But what happens if everyone's really good? Then you've got those. What happens if 100% of your workforce are excellent? You're just getting rid of good people and paying. Of course, if you choose to get rid of someone out of your company, then you've got to pay them redundancy and potential legal action and all the stuff that goes with it.
Whereas not over here. No, you don't get anything. You get fired on the spot. I'd say that the majority of people working here in America are classified as employees at will. There is no law that requires anybody to be given 2 weeks notice. Do you think you'd be fired on the spot? And you're lucky if you get a firm handshake when you're done.
Yeah, well, there we are. You see, that's what happens. You know, countries like this, it's this bloody socialism that's looking after the worker. It's an awful thing, isn't it?
It is.
But I love this Amazon idea because it's the opposite, isn't it? It's like saying, yeah, we don't need to worry about, you know, the deadwood because hopefully, and you'd hope. The only problem is, of course, it might be the good people who are leaving, but you'd assume there's an element of self-selection. So I love it. I think it's I'm surprised more people aren't doing this. Anyway, someone who has left a job or is about to, David Letterman with Colbert replacing him.
Speaking of good people, yeah, the world quickly rebounded, though, this week from the sad announcement that Late Show host David Letterman is going to retire after 33 years as one of, I think, this country's most uniquely funny host in television. He really has. And America's favorite faux conservative, Stephen Colbert of the Comedy Central's Colbert Report, was quickly given the nod by CBS to fill the seat. There was a lot of speculation, a lot of names thrown out there, and it looked like the process was going to go on for some time, but CBS really jumped up and said, no, Stephen Colbert's got the nod. And you can be sure and bet the farm that Colbert is going to drop that conservative pundit persona when he takes over the show. He's got a brand of observational stream of consciousness wit that makes him a real natural replacement for David Letterman. And on the other side of the coin, knows never one to miss an opportunity to turn even, an innocent event like this into the sign of the apocalypse. The drug-addled right-wing radio bloviator Rush Limbaugh screeched. Now, I'm going to quote now. Limbaugh says, CBS has declared war on heartland America. No longer is comedy going to be a covert assault on traditional American values, conservatism. Now it's just wide out in the open. What this hire means is a redefinition of what is funny, a redefinition of what is comedy, end quote. Now, Limbaugh curling up into a ball and sobbing like a little girl in his show. It's typical of his dumbed-down audience. In 2009, Phil, Ohio State University did a study that found a conservative seemed to not understand the intrinsic underlining joke of the Colbert Report. The study also found, I'm not kidding, that conservatives were more likely to report that Colbert only pretends to be joking and he genuinely means what he says, while liberals were more likely to report that Colbert used satire and was not serious when offering those political statements. No kidding.
Really? There we are. Oh, well, maybe now they'll get the joke if they read the survey. But yeah,
I doubt it.
It is. No, maybe, probably not. Isn't it so unfair, though, isn't it, that the left-wingers have the sense of humour? I mean, the right-wingers have got all the money. The left-wingers have got the sense of humour. And they'll never swap, of course. I don't know whether that means if you've got a sense of humour, you're going to destined for a life of poverty. Probably does, doesn't it? But it's going to be interesting because I'm just seeing him as, I mean, he is a funny guy. He works. He's not mainstream, and he's being thrown totally into the mainstream. He's obviously used to working to a script where he's worked out all the funny lines in advance. How is he going to be where he's improvising and assuming his real persona, as you say, rather than this fake conservative persona?
I think he'll do quite well because he's done a lot of appearances and a lot of speaking engagements in the past couple of years. And when you see him doing these interviews and these appearances as Stephen Colbert himself, he's really spot on. He's really a genius. He's very, very funny and very quick. So I don't think there will be any problem whatsoever in making this transition. Plus, too, the Comedy Central is a select audience, even though it is highly popular here in the United States. It doesn't have the same audience as The Late Show with David Letterman has. I mean, that's a broad national audience, whereas the Comedy Central is a targeted, specific cable show. But whereas The Late Show on CBS is a nationally broadcast
free-to-air show. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So are they going to lose some audience though? Because it is a political thing, isn't it? I mean, he will be by the conservatives. He'll be tarnished as a raving socialist. And why should we be watching this man on our TV sets? Aren't they going to lose?
Honestly, no, because the conservatives conservatives were not watching David Letterman anyway, because David Letterman is very left.
Right.
And during as he matured and as he grew older, he became very political and had a lot of, slammed right-wingers, even though he would have them on as guests. He's really a man of the people and very much has a socialist attitude, too. It has a lot to do with his upbringing in the Midwest, him becoming a father, 9/11, which was right around the corner from where his studios are. So, I think it'll be a good fit. I mean, we recently saw that, too, when Jimmy Fallon took over for Jay Leno on The Tonight Show. There was a drop in audience, and then it spiked. So I think it's a new breed of people, but people are dedicated to it. I think we'll give it a chance. I won't, because I'm in bed by 9 o'clock, so it doesn't mean anything to me.
You and me both. I was about to say that, actually. It's a shame we don't have that same routine here in Australia where, we have a late night chat show every night of the week. And then I was thinking, what do I care? Because like you, 9 o'clock is about it for me. I've fallen asleep on the sofa by 8:30. So my wife's sitting there with her eyes rolling and saying, why don't you just go to bed? And then she watches some old women's crap on TV. Well, so she, works out well for us both. Let's talk next week. Good to see you.
All right, brother. Take care.
Balls Radio with Phil Dobbie.